Is New Zealand really expensive? According to the general opinion online and multiple news and media outlets, the answer is yes. New Zealand is so expensive. And more, prices just keep going up. Things are getting more and more expensive and New Zealanders are struggling to keep up. Overall, people aren't able to make ends meet and the cost of living crisis is just making everything that much harder. But let's take a step back here. If you do a search for the most expensive countries in the whole world, you'll most likely see countries such as Switzerland, Sweden, Hong Kong come up in the top 10 pretty much more or less every year. New Zealand, however, doesn't appear in the top 10. And according to this cost of living list, Auckland, which is our most expensive city here in New Zealand, ranks as number 111 and Wellington as 145. So what is the reality? Is New Zealand actually an expensive place to live compared to other countries in the world? Is there any truth to all of these articles and opinions online for someone who is thinking of coming to New Zealand or making New Zealand their home? To put things into perspective, in this video, I'm going to dive into some of the general expenses you can expect to have living here in New Zealand and let you be the judge of that. How do these costs measure up against what you're paying in your home country? Before we get into it, if you don't already know, my name is Maddie and I am your Kiwi best friend helping you with all things New Zealand from a New Zealander. So if you have any interest in anything about New Zealand, please subscribe to my channel, leave a comment and a like, it would help me a lot. Let's get into it. Let's start by clarifying the average income earned by a New Zealander. This is $31.61 per hour, which leads to an average annual income of around 65,700 New Zealand dollars. This is equivalent to $18.04 per hour in US dollars, which leads to around 37,400 US dollars annually. Now, renting in New Zealand is likely going to be one of your biggest expenses, as it would be in basically any country. I do actually have a whole video that talks just about renting in New Zealand. I'll leave it here for you if you want to go check that out. But to give you a quick summary about what rent is going to cost in New Zealand if you're on a budget, living on your own, you can expect to spend around 200 New Zealand dollars per week on rent. Yes, we calculate rent per week. Very strange, I know. So this will be around $800 per month in New Zealand dollars. If you are a family with 2 children, you can expect to spend around $600 per week, which is 2,400 New Zealand dollars per month. So in US dollars, it would be around $450 to rent a place on your own per month. And for a family with 2 children, you're looking at around 1,370 US dollars per month. One thing to note about these prices is that they're usually excluding other bills. So when I say other bills, I mean things like electricity, gas, and water. So all of those expenses usually sit on top of the price that is advertised when you're renting a place. So what do you think about these prices? Are they more expensive or cheaper than what you're paying in your home country? Let me know in the comments. I love to see all the different answers and make sure you tell me where you're from when you're leaving the comment, because this will help us all to get a better idea of how reasonable rent is here in New Zealand. Next up, groceries. How expensive is food in New Zealand? We have a few main supermarket chains here in New Zealand. Generally, the cheapest one is called Pack and Save, and the more expensive ones are New World and Countdown. These supermarkets are normally huge, and New Zealanders will generally do a big food shop, so they'll go to the supermarket once a week or once every 2 weeks just to get everything all at once. So New Zealanders generally do spend a lot of money each time they go to the supermarket. A single person living alone in New Zealand generally spends around 400 New Zealand dollars on groceries each month. This is equivalent to around 228 US dollars. A family with 2 children would expect to spend around 600 New Zealand dollars each month, which equates to around 340 US dollars each month. Let's compare the price of some of the common items in Pack and Save. Bananas, $3.89 a kilo. Milk for $4.29. Plain white bread, $1.15. Butter, $1.54 for 100 grams. And these eggs were 63 cents each. How do these grocery items measure up? Were those prices what you were expecting? Eating out at restaurants and cafes. When you arrive to New Zealand, you're obviously going to want to treat yourself every now and again. So how affordable are restaurants and cafes in New Zealand? The average meal here in a restaurant is going to cost you around 35 New Zealand dollars. And a more expensive meal, probably somewhere around the $60 mark. For fast food, you can expect to pay between $15 and $20. And for a coffee, you can expect to pay anywhere between $3 and $6. I find that in Auckland, where I'm from, I'm usually paying something like $4 or $5 for a coffee. That would be like a standard cappuccino, flat white, something like that. And I would be super interested to know how much you pay for coffee in your home country. In New Zealand, we drink a lot of coffee and a lot of people are very proud of the coffee culture we have, but maybe we are being charged too much. What do you think? Phone plans. How much is it going to set you back to have data, messaging and calls here in New Zealand? Personally, I think the phone plans in New Zealand are ridiculously expensive, especially if you want to pay for data alone. The average monthly spend of a New Zealander on their phone plan is around 26 New Zealand dollars. Here is an example of one of the cheapest phone companies we have here in New Zealand. As you can see, their cheapest plan that includes data is $40. I think something important to note here is that New Zealanders text and call a lot instead of using WhatsApp or Messenger or using other platforms that need internet to communicate with each other. So for this reason, I think when you come here, definitely just try to call and text as much as possible if you want to save money. And finally, transport. As you probably already know, car ownership here in New Zealand is huge. It's another level of insane. New Zealand is one of the countries with the highest car ownership rates per capita, with 9 cars for every 10 people, which means that most people who live here don't use public transport, they just drive themselves everywhere. However, if you are able to get around without a car, or you don't have the option of owning a car, in Auckland, the average spend on public transport is $200 per month, and in Wellington, it's $220 per month. So now it's your turn to tell me what you think. Was something that I mentioned in this video a lot cheaper or a lot more expensive than what you expected? Was there something that surprised you, that shocked you, or made you think, wow, actually New Zealand is expensive, or wow, actually New Zealand is a lot cheaper than what I'm paying here? Let me know in the comments what you guys think, and also if there's something important that you would like to know the cost of, let me know and I can also make a part 2. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope it made you think about some of the things that you're paying for and whether they are expensive or if they're cheap. And maybe this helps you make your decision about whether or not you'd like to come to New Zealand. Thanks again and see you soon.